What if I told you the history you learned in school was wrong? Not just a little bit wrong, but deliberately simplified, sanitized, and wrapped in a heroic myth to make you feel good. What if the real stories were darker, more complicated, and far more human? My name is Elias Thorne, and I'm not your typical historian. I work in a place called The Well, a deep archive where history's footnotes and redacted files are kept. My job is to blow away the smoke of myth and reveal the uncomfortable machinery underneath. Because history isn't a statue, it's a crime scene. And tonight, we're investigating 3 of America's most defining moments. Let's start in Boston, December 1773. You know the story. Brave patriots, furious about taxation without representation, heroically dump British tea into the harbor. A noble strike for freedom. But what if it wasn't about liberty at all? What if it was about money? The uncomfortable truth is that the British government had actually lowered the tax on tea. The East India Company was now selling its tea directly to the colonies, making it cheaper than the smuggled Dutch tea that lined the pockets of men like John Hancock, one of New England's wealthiest smugglers. The Patriots weren't just about to lose their liberty. They were about to lose their profit margins. In the back rooms of the Old South Meeting House, the conversation wasn't about rights. It was about business. A prominent merchant whispered to Samuel Adams, "If the people taste cheap tea, they will swallow the king's rule with it." So, the Boston Tea Party wasn't a spontaneous protest. It was a calculated act of corporate sabotage, designed to protect a local monopoly. When the raiders, disguised as Mohawks, boarded the ships, it was a silent, grim operation. They were careful not to damage the ships, even sweeping the decks afterward. This wasn't a riot. It was a surgical strike to protect the black market economy of the Founding Fathers. Next, we travel to the dusty streets of Tombstone, Arizona, in October 1881. The gunfight at the OK Corral. The myth paints a simple picture. The heroic Earp brothers and Doc Holliday standing as the thin line of law and order against the evil Cowboys. A classic showdown of good versus evil. But the reality was a street-level civil war. Tombstone wasn't just some wild frontier town. It was a booming city with a bitter class divide. The Cowboys, the McClorys, and Clantons weren't just outlaws. They were rural, working-class ranchers, mostly Democrats, who felt squeezed out by big city business interests. On the other side were the Earps. They weren't just lowmen. They were political enforcers for the Republican establishment and the northern corporations moving in. The shootout didn't happen because the Cowboys were being rowdy. It happened because 2 rival factions were fighting for control of the town. The county sheriff backed the Cowboys, while the town marshal, Virgil Earp, backed the business owners. When Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday marched down Fremont Street, they weren't just disarming criminals. They were carrying out a political purge. The evidence suggests the Cowboys were either unarmed or trying to surrender when the shooting started. The heroic low men were later arrested for murder. The Wild West wasn't tamed by badges. It was tamed by venture capitalists who used gunmen as their instruments. Finally, let's go to Houston, July 1969. The Apollo 11 moon landing. The ultimate symbol of American ingenuity and flawless technological triumph. The Eagle has landed. But behind that iconic phrase was a terrifying, heart-pounding series of near failures. The real story isn't one of seamless perfection. It's a story of human error, panic, and last-second saves. Just 3 minutes before landing on the moon, the Apollo guidance computer, a machine with less processing power than a modern musical greeting card, started screaming alarms. It was overloaded and rebooting. In mission control, the steely-eyed missile men were terrified. The landing was about to be aborted. The mission was saved not by Neil Armstrong's piloting skills alone, but by a woman you've probably never heard of, Margaret Hamilton. She and her team at MIT had programmed the software to be asynchronous. This meant if the computer got overwhelmed, it would automatically kill low-priority tasks to focus on the one thing that mattered: keeping the engine running. When a young engineer saw the alarm code, he had a cheat sheet and yelled, "Go!" Even then, Armstrong had to take manual control. The landing site was covered in car-sized boulders. He was burning through fuel at an alarming rate. When the Eagle finally touched down, they had less than 20 seconds of fuel left. Any less, and an automatic abort would have ripped the lander apart. The one small step was nearly a crater. America planted its flag on the moon, not by destiny, but by the skin of its teeth, a cheat sheet, and a software failsafe, designed by a woman who wouldn't get her credit for decades. So, what does it mean to know the Rio stories? The Tea Party is a corporate protection racket. T-O-N-K. P. Corral as a political hit job. The moon landing is a terrifying near disaster. Does it make these moments less iconic? No. It makes them real. When we clear away the smoke, we don't find perfect gods or flawless heroes. We find desperate, greedy, terrified, and brilliant human beings. We find that America wasn't forged by destiny. It was forged by people making impossible choices in the dark, hoping that history would forgive them in the light. The truth is always more interesting than the myth. Thanks for watching. If you want to uncover more of history's hidden truths, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, keep questioning everything.